The day humanity joined the Harmonic Concord should have been our greatest triumph. After centuries of scanning the stars for signs of life, we had finally found them. Not just one civilization, but a vast network of species spanning thousands of light years, all bound together by a shared philosophy: emotional stability as the foundation of galactic peace. Dr. Elara Vance stood quietly among the human delegation, in the grand amphitheater of the Concord's capital world, Elara, watching as representatives from dozens of species place their unique signatures on the Unity Accord. As Earth's leading cultural anthropologist, she had been chosen to represent humanity's emotional and artistic traditions in these historic negotiations. The amphitheater's walls shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that shifted in response to the collective emotional state of those present, a Concord tradition meant to maintain harmony. Today, the walls glowed a steady, calming blue. Elara noted with some concern how the human delegation, standing stiffly in their formal attire, seemed to disrupt the pattern with their more erratic emotional signatures. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for your species," announced the Concord Prime Speaker, a tall being with multiple appendages that moved in soothing, rhythmic patterns as she spoke. "You are now part of the Harmonic Concord, where peace is maintained through emotional regulation and mutual understanding. Your world will gain access to advanced medical technologies, sustainable energy solutions, and the collective wisdom of civilizations spanning millennia." The human delegation erupted in quiet applause, but Elara's hands remained still at her sides. She had spent years studying the Concord's requirements, and she knew the other shoe was about to drop. As is standard for newly admitted species, the Prime Speaker continued, her appendages slowing to a more deliberate pace. "Humanity must implement the emotional stability protocols. This includes the mandatory use of Harmony Dampeners to regulate emotional extremes, restrictions on artistic expressions that induce strong emotional fluctuations, and adherence to the Concord's guidelines for public discourse." Elara felt her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, lean toward her. Did they really just say we can't have loud music or dramatic performances? Elara nodded grimly. "It's been part of the negotiations from the start. They claim it's necessary for integration into the Concord's emotional ecosystem. But who will maintain our cultural identity?" Marcus whispered. "How will we process grief, celebrate joy, or inspire change without our arts?" "The Concord provides alternative methods," Elara replied quietly, though her own doubts were growing. "Meditative practices, regulated emotional sharing circles, and approved forms of artistic expression." The ceremony continued, but Elara's mind was already racing. She had argued passionately during negotiations that human emotional complexity was a strength, not a liability. Our capacity for intense joy, deep sorrow, and passionate conviction had driven our greatest achievements. The Concord representatives had listened politely, but remained unmoved. "Your emotional volatility is precisely why these regulations are necessary," one had told her. "We've observed your history, your wars, your social upheavals, your individual acts of both great cruelty and remarkable compassion. All stem from unregulated emotional states." As the final signatures were affixed and humanity officially joined the Harmonic Concord, Elara forced a smile for the cameras. The benefits were undeniable. Diseases that had plagued us for centuries were already being eradicated. Energy problems were solved, and our first interstellar research vessels were preparing to depart for nearby star systems. But something about the Concord's insistence on emotional uniformity troubled her deeply. 6 months later, Elara stood in the observation lounge of the Mars Cultural Exchange Center, staring at the data stream, showing the first effects of the silent wave. It had begun as a subtle anomaly, electronic devices across human colonies experiencing brief, unexplained malfunctions. Then the Harmony Dampeners started failing. "Third incident this week," said Director Iris Thorne, joining her at the viewport. His usual calm Concord-approved demeanor showed cracks of concern. The new Shanghai colony on Titan lost dampener functionality for nearly an hour. People experienced emotional states they haven't felt in years. Unmediated joy, unfiltered grief. Some had panic attacks, others experienced what they described as emotional euphoria. And the Concord response? Elara asked, already knowing the answer. Standard protocol. They dispatched Harmony monitors to assess the emotional instability and provide stabilization treatments, but they're treating it like a human problem, not recognizing it as a universal threat. Elara pulled up a comparative analysis on her datapad. Look at this. The silent wave affects all technology, but human colonies are suffering disproportionately because we've become dependent on dampeners. Other species have natural emotional regulation or simpler technological needs. But for humans who have suppressed their natural emotional expression for generations, when the dampeners fail, we're vulnerable in ways the Concord doesn't understand. Thorne nodded. They see it as proof their regulations were necessary, not as evidence of a critical flaw in our integration. Elara's datapad chimed with an urgent message. Her sister's colony on Sirian had reported a major dampener failure. Without thinking, she was already moving toward the exit. I need to get to Sirian. Elara, wait, Thorne called after her. The Concord will see any independent action as emotional instability. You could jeopardize humanity's standing. But Elara was already gone. Sirian orbital colony floated in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, a glittering sphere of human habitation that had once been a symbol of our expansion into the solar system. Now, as Elara's shuttle approached, she could see emergency lights flashing across its surface, red for medical emergencies, yellow for emotional support teams. Her sister Lena worked in the colony's Harmony Integration Center, helping residents adjust to the dampeners. When Elara arrived, she found Lena coordinating a team of medical personnel in the central plaza, where dozens of colonists sat in various states of distress. Elara. Lena's voice was strained but relieved as she embraced her sister. I didn't think you'd make it. What happened? Elara asked, scanning the scene. The silent wave hit us hard this time, Lena explained. Dampeners failed completely for 45 minutes. People experienced raw emotions without the filters they've relied on since joining the Concord. Some couldn't handle it. Elara noticed a young man sitting alone on a bench, rocking slightly, tears streaming down his face. What's his story? Chris lost his partner in the Europa transport accident last year. With the dampeners, he processed his grief in controlled increments. Without them, it all came rushing back at once. Elara knelt beside Chris. Can I sit with you? He nodded silently, his breathing uneven. I'm sorry for your loss, Elara said gently. I can't imagine how painful this must be. Chris looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. It's overwhelming, but also real. I haven't felt this connected to her since before the dampeners. Elara's mind raced. The Concord viewed unregulated emotion as dangerous, but here was someone who, despite the pain, found value in the authenticity of his feelings. Chris, what helped you calm down just now? The music, he whispered. When the emergency team played that old Earth song. Imagine. Something about it settled me. Elara stood abruptly. Lena, where's the cultural archive? The one with pre-Concord human art? In storage sector 7B. Why? Because I think I've been approaching this all wrong, Elara said, already moving. The Concord sees human emotion as a problem to be managed. But what if it's actually a solution? The cultural archive was a cavernous space filled with relics of humanity's pre-Concord artistic expressions, recordings of music, films, literature, and performance art, all preserved but rarely accessed since joining the Concord. According to regulations, these materials could only be studied in controlled academic settings, never experienced fully. Elara moved quickly through the aisles, Lena following closely behind. What are you looking for? Proof, Elara replied. Something the Concord has missed. She stopped before a display case containing ancient musical instruments. The Concord believes strong emotions are inherently destabilizing. But what if certain emotional expressions actually create stability? What if our music, our art, and our stories are not just emotional outlets, but regulatory mechanisms in themselves? Lena frowned. You're suggesting human art could counteract the silent wave. Not just counteract it, Provide emotional regulation that doesn't depend on technology the wave can disrupt. Elara pulled up a historical record on her datapad. Before dampeners, humans used art to process collective trauma, to build community, and to find meaning in suffering. Maybe that's the key. She selected a recording from the archive, a live performance of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. This piece was created during a time of great upheaval. The composer was going deaf. Europe was at war, yet he created something that has brought comfort and unity to billions. Elara activated the recording. The music filled the archive, rich and powerful, building from quiet contemplation to triumphant celebration. Lena swayed slightly. It's intense, but I don't feel destabilized. Exactly, Elara said, her excitement growing. The Concord assumes emotional intensity equals instability. But what if the opposite is true? What if processed, channeled emotion creates deeper stability than artificial suppression? As the final notes faded, Elara made her decision. We need to test this, properly. Project Resonance began in secret. Officially, Elara and Lena were conducting approved research on historical human emotional regulation techniques. Unofficially, they were building something far more radical, a technology that could harness the harmonic frequencies of human artistic expression to create what they called resonance fields, capable of stabilizing emotional states without dampeners. They found an unlikely ally in Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a neuroengineer who had worked on the original dampener technology. I've always believed we took the wrong approach, he admitted when Elara approached him. We focused on suppressing emotional extremes rather than developing natural regulation. The silent wave has exposed that flaw. Their hidden laboratory was an abandoned cultural center on the dark side of Phobos, officially decommissioned but secretly maintained by a network of artists and cultural preservationists. Here, away from Concord monitoring, they worked to develop the resonance chamber, a device that could amplify and focus the emotional frequencies of human art into protective fields. The physics is actually quite elegant, Kenji explained one evening as they tested an early prototype. Human artistic expression creates complex harmonic patterns that interact with our neural chemistry in specific ways. Music, for instance, triggers dopamine and serotonin release in predictable patterns. When shared communally, these effects amplify through mirror neurons and social bonding mechanisms. Elara watched as the prototype filled the room with a gentle hum, accompanied by soft lighting that shifted with the emotional tone of the music playing. So the resonance chamber isn't creating emotion, it's facilitating our natural emotional regulation? Precisely, Kenji nodded. Where dampeners suppress, resonance enhances our innate capacity to process emotions healthily. It's regulation through expression, not suppression. Their progress was threatened when Harmony monitor Varelis arrived for a routine inspection of the Phobos facility. A member of the Concord's regulatory body, Varelis had distinctive crystalline skin that shifted color with her emotional state. A natural ability humans lacked, which the Concord viewed as evidence of our emotional immaturity. Dr. Vance, Varelis greeted her, her skin glowing a calm teal. I was not aware you were conducting research here. Elara maintained her most regulated demeanor. Just historical analysis of pre-Concord emotional practices, monitor Varelis, all within approved parameters. Varelis's multifaceted eyes scanned the room, lingering on the resonance chamber prototype. This facility has been decommissioned for 5 years. Why conduct your research here, rather than at the official Cultural Exchange Center? The historical context, Elara replied smoothly. This space was designed for unfiltered human artistic expression. Studying it here provides valuable insights. Varelis moved closer to the prototype. And what is this device? A harmonic analyzer, Elara said, without hesitation. It measures the frequency patterns of historical human music to understand their emotional impact. May I examine it? Before Elara could respond, Lena intervened. I'm afraid it's currently malfunctioning. We were just preparing to return it to storage. Varelis's skin shifted to a questioning yellow. How unfortunate. I would have been interested to see how human historical practices compare to Concord emotional regulation techniques. We found some fascinating parallels, Elara said, steering Varellis toward the exit. Perhaps I can share our findings in my next official report. As Varellis departed, Lena let out a breath. That was too close. Elara watched the monitor's shuttle disappear into the Phobos sky. She suspected something. We need to accelerate our timeline. The silent wave struck the Europa Research Station with unprecedented force. Dampeners failed completely, and the station's 1,400 residents were plunged into unmediated emotional states. Without the regulated processing they'd grown accustomed to, many experienced severe psychological distress. The Concord's response was characteristically slow. Their assessment protocols required evaluating the emotional contagion risk before deploying assistance. Elara received the emergency call while calibrating the resonance chamber's final components. They're not sending help soon enough, Lena said grimly. By Concord protocols, they'll take at least 16 hours to assess and respond. Elara made her decision instantly. We take the chamber to Europa, now. But it's not fully tested, and if the Concord finds out. If we don't act, people could die, Elara interrupted. The chamber is at 85% functionality. That's better than nothing. They loaded the portable resonance chamber onto a research shuttle and departed Phobos, setting course for Jupiter's icy moon. As they traveled, Elara reviewed the chamber's capabilities. Main harmonic emitters are online, Kenji reported from the engineering console. We can generate resonance fields covering approximately 35% of the station's main habitat. Better than nothing, Elara said, though her hands trembled slightly. This was the moment of truth. Would their theory hold under real crisis conditions? Europa Station came into view, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes beneath the moon's icy surface. Emergency lights flashed across its exterior, and several evacuation shuttles hovered nearby, waiting for the Concord's all clear. Life signs show elevated stress markers across the station, Lena reported, particularly in the residential sectors. Elara guided their shuttle to the main docking bay. We'll set up in the central plaza, the largest open space where we can reach the most people. As they entered the station, the emotional chaos was palpable. People wandered the corridors in various states of distress, some crying uncontrollably, others laughing manically, and a few sitting motionless, in shock. Medical teams moved among them, administering sedatives rather than addressing the root cause. In the central plaza, they set up the resonance chamber. Elara selected a playlist of human music known for its emotional balancing properties, choral works, gentle folk songs, and pieces that move through emotional ranges in healthy, integrated ways. Activating primary emitters, Kenji announced. The chamber hummed to life, filling the plaza with a gentle, multi-layered sound that was more felt than heard. The lighting shifted to soft, calming colors that pulsed with the music's rhythm. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Elara noticed a woman sitting against a wall, rocking back and forth, gradually slowing her movements. A man who had been shouting incoherently lowered his voice, his breathing becoming more regular. It's working, Lena whispered. They expanded the resonance field, reaching further into the station's corridors. Over the next few hours, they watched as the emotional chaos gradually transformed into something resembling calm. People began connecting with each other, sharing their experiences, and supporting those who were still struggling. A station physician approached them, her expression a mix of confusion and gratitude. What did you do? People are stabilizing without sedatives. Some are even reporting clarity they haven't felt in years. Elara chose her words carefully. We provided a space for natural emotional processing. Human art has always served this purpose. The physician shook her head. The Concord teaches us that unregulated emotion leads to chaos. But this feels like a deeper kind of order. As the station stabilized, Elara received an urgent message. A Concord inspection team was en route, responding to reports of emotional disruption at Europa Station. They're coming to shut us down, Lena said. Elara watched as station residents gathered in the plaza, now filled with quiet conversation and tentative musical humming, a spontaneous community response to the resonance field. Let them come. They need to see this. The Concord inspection team arrived within hours, led by Harmony Monitor Varelis and a senior Concord official, Counselor Tuvok. They entered the station to find something unexpected, not emotional chaos, but a community engaged in what appeared to be a large-scale emotional regulation session. People were experiencing severe distress due to dampener failure, Elara explained as they toured the station. Rather than suppress their emotions, we facilitated natural processing through harmonic resonance. Counselor Tuvok, a being with multiple sensory tendrils that normally remained still, now twitched with curiosity. This violates Concord emotional stability protocols. Unregulated emotional expression is precisely what leads to societal breakdown. Is it? Elara countered. Look around you. What do you see? Chaos or community? Tuvok's tendrils stilled as he observed the station residents. Groups sat in circles sharing stories, others created spontaneous music and art, and many simply sat in quiet contemplation. Medical personnel reported rapidly declining emergency cases. Varelis examined the resonance chamber. This technology, it's amplifying emotional states rather than suppressing them. The Concord's entire philosophy is based on the understanding that emotional extremes must be controlled. But what if control isn't the same as health? Elara asked. For humans, emotional suppression has created a fragility. The moment our technological regulation fails, we collapse. Natural emotional regulation developed through art and community creates resilience. She activated the chamber again, this time selecting a piece that moved through a full emotional arc, from sorrow to hope, tension to resolution. Watch. As the resonance field expanded, they saw station residents respond not with destabilization, but with deepening connection. People who had been isolated began reaching out to others. Those still processing difficult emotions found comfort in shared experience rather than chemical suppression. Counselor Tuvok's tendrils moved slowly, a sign of deep contemplation among his species. This challenges fundamental Concord principles. If emotional expression can create stability rather than disrupt it, then our entire approach to emotional regulation may be flawed. Varelis finished, her crystalline skin shifting through colors Elara had never seen before, evidence of profound emotional processing. The inspection team departed with promises to review their findings, but Elara knew the real test was yet to come. The Concord would not easily abandon centuries of emotional regulation doctrine. News of the Europa intervention spread through human colonies faster than Concord sensors could contain it. Within days, requests for resonance chamber technology poured in from settlements across the solar system. The Concord responded with increasing restrictions, suspending technology transfers, limiting human movement between colonies, and intensifying monitoring of human cultural activities. Elara and her team relocated their operations to a network of hidden facilities across the asteroid belt, working with sympathetic Concord members and human colonists who had grown disillusioned with emotional suppression. The sanctions are getting worse, Lena reported during a secure meeting in their new headquarters, a repurposed mining complex on the asteroid 216 Cleopatra. The Concord has classified all human artistic expression as potentially destabilizing and restricted access to cultural archives. Elara reviewed the latest data. They're trying to cut off our access to the very materials we need for resonance technology. But they don't understand. They're only making humans more determined to reclaim our emotional heritage. Kenji entered with urgent news. They found another way to pressure us. The Concord has reduced its response time to silent wave incidents in non-human colonies while deliberately delaying assistance to human settlements. They're using our people as emotional test subjects. Elara's hands tightened into fists. They're creating emotional crises to prove their point, that humans can't handle unregulated emotion. It's working, Lena admitted. Without dampeners during silent wave events, people are suffering. But with your resonance approach, I know, Elara said. We need to scale up, fast. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Dr. Morellian, a Concord bioacoustics specialist who had studied human music. I've analyzed your resonance patterns, Morellian explained through a secure channel. Your harmonic structures interact with neural chemistry in ways we never considered. I've developed algorithms that could enhance your technology's effectiveness by 300%. Why help us? Elara asked. Because the Concord is wrong, Morellian said simply. Emotional diversity is a strength, not a weakness. My species experienced this ourselves centuries ago. We suppressed our natural emotional expressions to join the Concord and nearly lost our cultural identity in the process. With Morellian's help, they accelerated the development of the next-generation resonance network, a system that could create interconnected fields across entire colonies, using both technology and communal participation to build emotional resilience. Their first major test came during a massive silent wave event at the Mars Colonial Hub, home to over 25,000 residents. Dampeners failed completely, and the Concord delayed response, citing high emotional contagion risk. Elara and her team deployed the new resonance network across the colony's central districts. Unlike the Europa intervention, this was no longer subtle. They transformed public spaces into communal resonance chambers, where residents could process emotions together through music, movement, and shared storytelling. As the network activated, something remarkable happened. People didn't just stabilize, they began creating. Impromptu choirs formed in plazas. Dance circles emerged in corridors. People shared stories of loss and hope, connecting across generations and experiences. A Concord monitoring team arrived to assess the emotional disturbance, but found not chaos, but profound community healing. Counselor Tuvok himself appeared, his tendrils moving in complex patterns as he observed. This shouldn't be possible, he admitted to Elara. According to Concord doctrine, unregulated emotion should lead to societal breakdown. But look around you, Elara said. What you're seeing is emotional maturity, processing difficult feelings without suppression, finding connection through shared vulnerability. Tuvok watched as a group of colonists created a living mural, using light and movement to express their collective experience of the silent wave. Your people are demonstrating emotional regulation through expression rather than suppression. This challenges everything we believe. It challenges your beliefs, Elara corrected gently. But it confirms what humans have known for millennia. Art isn't an escape from reality, but a way to engage with it more deeply. The Mars Colonial Hub became a turning point. Videos of the resonance community spread through the Concord, reaching species who had also struggled with the rigid emotional protocols. Representatives from newer member species began contacting Elara, sharing their own experiences of cultural suppression in the name of harmonic stability. The Concord Council summoned Elara for what they called a harmonic assessment, a thinly veiled attempt to discredit her work. Instead, she turned it into something transformative. She stood before the council in the Grand Chamber of Aethoria, not as a supplicant, but as a representative of humanity's emotional heritage. Behind her floated holographic displays showing comparative data on emotional regulation across Concord species. For 5 years, she began, her voice steady, humanity has suffered under the false assumption that our emotional intensity is a liability. We joined the Concord believing emotional stability required uniformity. But the silent wave has revealed the truth. Our suppression created fragility, while our natural emotional expression builds resilience. She activated the first display, a timeline of Concord response times to silent wave incidents, color-coded by species membership tier. The Concord's emotional support system prioritizes older member species while neglecting newer ones. Response time for Tier 1 members, 21 minutes. For Tier 2, 47 minutes. For humanity and other Tier 3 members, over 7 hours, if it comes at all. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives from other newer species studied the data. This isn't oversight, Elara continued. It's policy. The Concord has designated human emotional experiences as high risk, not because they're inherently dangerous, but because they challenge your doctrine of emotional uniformity. She brought up another display, neurological scans comparing dampened versus resonance-assisted emotional processing. These scans show the physiological impact. Suppression creates neural strain and long-term fragility. Resonance processing builds neural pathways for healthy emotional regulation, the very stability the Concord claims to value. Counselor Tuvok rose from his seat. These findings challenge fundamental Concord principles. If emotional diversity enhances rather than threatens stability, then the entire Concord emotional regulation system needs reform, Elara finished. The chamber erupted in debate. But something unprecedented happened. Representatives from newer member species began speaking in support of Elara's findings. The Velnari, who had joined the Concord 50 years earlier, shared how their natural emotional expressiveness had been suppressed. The Zarathi described how their communal storytelling traditions had been restricted as emotionally disruptive. The Concord Prime Speaker finally called for order. These are serious challenges to our foundational principles. A special committee will be formed to investigate. No, Elara said firmly. The investigation is complete. What's needed now is action. She activated the final display, a live feed from human colonies where the resonance network was operating. This is what emotional maturity looks like. Not uniform calm, but the capacity to move through emotional ranges with community support. Not suppression, but integration. Not control, but wisdom. The chamber fell silent as they watched colonists engaged in the living resonance communities. Singing through grief, dancing through anxiety, and creating through uncertainty, all while maintaining profound connection and functionality. The Concord promised peace through emotional regulation, Elara said. But true peace comes through emotional authenticity. Humanity doesn't want to leave the Concord. We want to help transform it into what it was always meant to be. A community that values emotional diversity as strength. After hours of debate, the council agreed to a historic compromise. The emotional stability protocols would be revised to recognize emotional diversity as a strength. Human artistic expression would no longer be restricted, and the resonance network technology would be shared across the Concord. As Elara left the chamber, Counselor Tuvok approached her. "You've done more than secure rights for humanity," he said, his tendrils moving in a pattern she'd come to recognize as profound respect. "You've begun a transformation of the Concord itself. For centuries we believed emotional uniformity was the path to peace. You've shown us that true harmony comes from the integration of diverse emotional experiences." Elara watched as representatives from different species began sharing their own emotional traditions in the chamber's corridors. Music, movement, and storytelling. What had begun as a fight for human emotional freedom was becoming a renaissance of emotional expression across the Concord. 1 year later, Elara stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Harmony Resonance Station, orbiting Earth. No longer hidden or restricted, the station served as a center for emotional and cultural exchange between Concord species. 6 new resonance facilities completed construction last week, Lena reported, joining her at the viewport. The Velnari have adapted the technology to their vocal harmonics, and the Zarathi are using it in their storytelling ceremonies. Elara nodded. Concord response times to human silent wave incidents are now equal to all other members. And the cultural exchange program? Lena asked. Thriving. Concord species are studying human art forms, and we're learning from theirs. The first joint emotional regulation symposium is next month. Elara looked out at the stars, thinking about how much had changed. Humanity had been told our emotional intensity made us dangerous. We had proven it made us resilient. We had been restricted from expressing our full emotional range. We had shown that range to be our greatest strength. A young human officer approached them. "The Concord Cultural Delegation has arrived. They're waiting in the resonance chamber." As they walked toward the chamber, Elara saw representatives from a dozen species gathered, each prepared to share their emotional traditions. The room hummed with anticipation, not of uniform calm, but of diverse emotional frequencies preparing to weave together into something new. "Welcome," Elara said as she entered, "to the symphony of us all." In that moment, she understood what Counselor Tuvok had meant. This wasn't just about human rights or Concord reform. It was about something far more profound, a recognition that true harmony doesn't come from uniformity, but from the beautiful, complex integration of diverse voices. The emotional symphony of the galaxy had found a new movement, and humanity had helped compose it.